It's about time for us to get started this evening. A few announcements as we get started. Make sure you remember those who are on our prayer list. We do need to continue to remember Carla's mother, Miss Edna. She has shown some improvement physically, and she is now back at Heritage. So continue to remember her and Carla and the rest of their family. Are there any new ones we need to add to our prayer list tonight? All right, some things coming up. This coming Sunday, we'll be hosting the area-wide youth fellowship, which is the teenagers from all over. We normally host in November, but we've been asked to switch around and host this month. So we will be hosting it Sunday night here, 5 o'clock worship. Everyone is encouraged to be here. The church will provide the drinks and the pizzas, but we do ask for like handheld desserts, stuff that doesn't need a utensil that they can just grab and go sit in. Along with that, we will be setting up the room in here, putting all the tables up, and then lining the chairs up like we always do. So if you can help with that, we'd really appreciate that. If you have any questions, you can see me about that. Are there any other announcements we need to make? Don't forget about the classes promoting. So everyone probably knows where they go. If you have any questions, you can see Haley, and she can help you with that. There's nothing else. Kale's going to lead us in singing, and then Kale's going to lead us in a prayer, and then Chad's going to lead us in singing. They know what to do.
I don't have any songs playing. Chad, but if you would, please bow with me. Father in heaven, thank you for this wonderful day. Thank you for your guidance and watching over us and just taking care of us, Lord. And Lord, at this time, we ask you to be with our country and our leaders and just keep your hands on us, Lord. And Lord, also be with us as Christians. In this day and time we live in the country, there's a lot of crazy things going on and attacks against us as Christians, Lord, and just keep your hands on us and keep us safe. Lord, just help us to go throughout this week and be good examples of how we should be for you and watch over us and guide and protect us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Good evening, everybody. I must keep getting better looking all the time. Thank you, Jonathan, for that compliment. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with number 869. 869. Come we that love the Lord and let our joys be known. Join in a song with sweet accord. Join in a song with sweet accord. And us around the throne, and us around the throne. We're marching to Zion, beautiful, beautiful Zion. We're marching upward to Zion, the beautiful city of God. Let those refuse to sing who never knew our God, but children of the heavenly King, but children of the heavenly King, may speak their joys abroad, may speak their joys abroad. We're marching to Zion, beautiful, beautiful Zion. We're marching upward to Zion, the beautiful city of God. The hill of Zion yields 1,000 sacred sweets. Before we reach the heavenly fields, before we reach the heavenly fields, or walk the golden streets, or walk the golden streets, we're marching to
beautiful Zion, we're marching upward to Zion, the beautiful city of God. And let our songs abound and every tear be dry. We're marching through Emmanuel's ground. We're marching through Emmanuel's ground. To terror, worlds on high, to terror, worlds on high. We're marching to Zion, beautiful, beautiful Zion. We're marching upward to Zion, the beautiful city of God.
Matthew chapter 28. Now after the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary came to look at the grave, and behold, a severe earthquake had occurred, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled away the stone and sat upon it. And his appearance was like lightning, and his clothing as white as snow. The guards shook for fear of him and became like dead men. The angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who has been crucified. He is not here, for he has risen. Just as he said, come, see the place where he was lying. Go quickly and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead, and behold, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Behold, I have told you." They left the tomb quickly with fear and great joy and ran to report it to his disciples. And behold, Jesus met them and greeted them. And they came up and took hold of his feet and worshipped him. Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and take word to my brethren to leave for Galilee, and there they will see me." Now while they were on their way, some of the guard came into the city and reported to the chief priests all that had happened. And when they had assembled with the elders and consulted together, they gave a large sum of money to the soldiers and said, "You are to say his disciples came by night and stole him away while we were asleep. And if this should come to the governor's ear, we will win him over and keep you out of trouble." They took the money and did as they had been instructed, and this story was widely spread among the Jews and is to this day. Here in Matthew 28, that was verses 1 through 15, we have Matthew's account of what happens when the Marys go to the tomb. The Marys go to the tomb to weep there, I'm sure, but when they get there, they notice something. The stone was rolled away. There was something like lightning there. Told them that Jesus wasn't there and told them what to do. The reality that Jesus is risen. The angel said to the woman, verse 5, "Do not be afraid, for I know you are looking for Jesus who has been crucified." Verse 6, "He is not here." You see, the whole basis of our faith rests upon this truth. The reality that death did not defeat Jesus, but Jesus defeated death. He is not here, for he is risen. I think sometimes it's important for us to stop and be reminded of this truth. The way that we go about our day on a day-to-day basis, the things that present themselves from a day-to-day basis. The stress, the pressure, the anger, the trauma, the sickness, but also the successes, the triumphs, the victories, the good days and the good times. We can never forget this truth, that he is risen. He is not here. And because of that truth, we have the opportunity to look towards eternity in his presence. Why? He was victorious over death so that we could be too. Today in our society, in our culture, in our country, there's been tragedy. On some degree, there's tragedy every day. But within our society today, it's crazy. I'm sure that most of you are aware of Charlie Kirk. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a guy that does a lot of speaking. He professes a faith in Christ, and he stands up for what he believes in. He was shot today and killed. There's also a school shooting today in Colorado. Just craziness in our society. And when we stop and sit back and we think about those things, if we allow our minds to stay there in the negativity and the destruction and the activeness of Satan, we can become very discouraged. But I wanted to remind myself and maybe remind you, as a child of God, He is risen. To remember that our faith is not in people. Our faith is not in a country or a government. Our faith is not in our spouses, in our parents, grandparents, or our children. Our faith is in God. And Jesus is risen. So remind yourself of that. It doesn't take away the trauma that is present. It doesn't take away the questions. It doesn't even relieve the anger that is sometimes present inside of us. But what it does do is it helps us learn to deal with it and cope in it, to persevere through it, and continue to hold on to our faith and the reality that He is risen. And because of that, one day we will too. Tonight, if you're struggling in any particular way that you need prayers of strength, prayers of encouragement, prayers of forgiveness, we'd love to pray with you and pray for you. If you're ready to put Christ on in baptism and be baptized tonight, everything's ready. Let us know as together we stand and sing. Yeah.
Yet for the cross we have striven, after our labors are o'er, rescue our souls will be given on the eternal shore. Home of the soul, beautiful home, there we shall rest, never to roam, free from all care, happy and bright. Jesus is there, and He is the light. Off in the storm, lonely are we, sighing for home, longing for Thee. Beautiful home of the ransom beside the crystal stream. Yes, a sweet rest is remaining for the true children of God, where there will be no complaining, never a chastening rod. Home of the soul, beautiful home, there we shall rest, never to roam, free from all care, happy and bright. Jesus is there, He is alive, off in the storm, lonely are we, sighing for home, longing for Thee. Beautiful home of the ransom beside the crystal stream. Soon the bright home and adorning, we shall behold the glad dawn. Lean on the Lord till the morning, trust till the night is gone. Home of the soul, beautiful home, there we shall rest, never to roam, free from all care, happy and bright. Jesus is there, and He is alive. Off in the storm, lonely are we, sighing for home, longing for Thee. Beautiful home of the ransom beside the crystal stream.
Song before we are dismissed, number 959, number 959.
I once was lost in sin, but Jesus took me in, and then a little light from heaven filled my soul. I gave my heart in love and wrote my name above, and just a little talk with Jesus made me whole. Now let us have a little talk with Jesus. Tell him all about our troubles. Hear our faintest cry, answer by and by. Feel a little prayerful yearning, heart into heaven is turning. Find a little talk with Jesus makes it right. Sometimes my path seems drear without a ray of cheer, and then the cloud may hide the light of day. The mist of sin may rise and hide the starry skies, but just a little talk with Jesus clears the way. Have a little talk with Jesus. Tell him all about our troubles. He will hear our faintest cry, answer by and by. In a little prayerful yearning, heart into heaven is turning. You will find a little talk with Jesus makes it right. I may have doubts and fears, my eyes be filled with tears, but Jesus is a friend who watches day and night. I go to him in prayer, he knows my every care, and just a little talk with Jesus makes it right. Have a little talk with Jesus. Tell him all about our troubles. He will hear our faintest cry, answer by and by. Bring a little prayerful yearning, heart into heaven is turning. You will find a little talk with Jesus makes it right.
Me again. Good evening for the third time. I'm going to be teaching for a little while on Wednesday nights in here. Glad that you're here. We're going to begin in the book of Job. Go ahead and be turning over there. Job chapter 1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless, upright, fearing God, and turning away from evil. 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him. His possessions were also 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and very many servants. And that man was the greatest of all the men in the East. His sons used to go and hold a feast in the house of each one on his day, and they would send and invite 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. When the days of feasting had completed, their cycle, Job would sin and consecrate them, rising up early in the morning and offering burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, perhaps my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus Job did continually. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, from where do you come? Satan answered the Lord and said, from roaming about on the earth and walking around on it. The Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? For there is no one like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, fearing God and turning away from evil. Then Satan answered the Lord, does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge about him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But put forth your hand now and touch all that he has. He will surely curse you to your face. Then the Lord said to Satan, behold, all that he has is in your power, only do not put forth your hand on him. So Satan departed from the presence of the Lord. Now on the day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the donkeys feeding beside them. And the Sabaeans attacked and took them, and also slew the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another servant also came and said, the fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep, and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another also came and said, the Chaldeans formed 3 bands and made a raid on the camels and took them and slew the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another also came and said, your sons and your daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, and behold, a great wind came from across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house. And it fell on the young people, and they died. And I alone have escaped to tell you. Then Job arose and tore his robe and shaved his head, and he fell to the ground and worshipped. He said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Through all this, Job did not sin, nor did he blame God. Here in Job chapter 1, we find a man that is described there in verse 1, who was blameless, upright, who feared God and turned away from evil. Someone that is described in those terms really means a godly man. He even, would do sacrifices on behalf of his children, which we have to understand this was before the new law. But he did these sacrifices on behalf of his children just in case they may have said in their heart. Now, to me, what that does is it tells us the depth of the faith and commitment of Job. And so we understand that quickly about who Job is. And then we have Satan presenting himself before the Lord, right? And Satan presents himself before the Lord, and he says, this is interesting. God says, what have you been doing? He said, I've been roaming about the earth. And God says to him, a very popular phrase or phrase that you know, what does he say? You can talk that. Have you considered my servant Job? And he said, everything that he's got, you've blessed. You've touched everything in his life. Why would I even attempt to go to him? And God says, Satan words, that you put this hedge of protection around him. I love that phrase. He says, let me take that away from him, and he'll turn on you. And God still has a hedge of protection around Job, and he said, you can do anything, but don't touch him. At this point, you can do anything, but do not harm him. Don't put your finger on him. And Satan does. He takes everything away from him. All his livestock. And we don't talk about this much when we study it. Not just his livestock, but those who tended to the livestock. You notice that when the report was given to Job, what did we read every time the report was given? And I alone escape to tell you. To the point that Job and his sons and daughters were in the oldest son's house, and they were celebrating or eating and drinking there. And it says, a strong wind came and knocked down the four corners of the house, and I alone have escaped to tell you. So now we have Job's children taken from him. Surely, you'll turn your back on God. Instead, he rips his clothes off. What is that really? Grief, in deep grief and mourning. Takes his clothes off and he says, naked I came into the world, naked I'll go back. But he never blames God. Now, we see this take place. We're not going to read all of it. You can go and read, but keep reading, and what happens next? We see that the hedge was lowered a little bit, and that Job ends up losing everything, including his body, his health. The way I think about it is from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. What do you have? Sores. Depends on your version. It says boils. And he would like break pottery and take shards of pottery and claw. That's crazy. I want you to hold on to this for just a few minutes for our discussion time tonight. And then, not only has most everything been taken from him, the people that he's close to, his friends and his wife begin to say things like, what did you do? What did you do for all this to happen to you? What sins have you committed? To the point of saying, just curse God and die. Yet Job refuses. When we think about the character of Job, a lot of times our mind immediately goes to patience. Have you heard the phrase? You have. They must have the patience of Job. Well, I ain't got it. I don't have the patience of Job. But I wanted us for a few minutes to look at this, not only Job's response, but I wanted us for a few minutes to look at the character that is revealed. And when you hear that, our minds, or my mind, would immediately go to the character from chapter 1, verse 1, the character of Job. That ain't what I want to talk about. We'll hit that a little bit. That's not what I want. I want to talk about, for a few minutes, the character of Satan. I want to talk about the character and the realness of Satan. You see, when we begin to think about people, and all of us probably know some really, I hope you do, know some really great people. We also know some people that we would say don't have the best character, right? Do you have some people who have a flawed character, but even though we know people whose character does not reflect Job 1, chapter 1, or might not reflect what Scripture teaches as a Christian, even though we may know people like that, we still understand that most of the time those people as maybe bad people, but they have a limit, right? It may be much further than ours, but they have a limit. And I think sometimes we associate Satan having a limit. Now, I want to tell you that Satan, in his character, has no limit to evil. Now, is Satan limited? Yes. I'm not saying, don't mishear me or misquote me. I am not saying that Satan has no limit. I'm saying that Satan's evil character has no limit. The limit that Satan has is placed on him by God. He's only limited by God. He's not limited in his own self-conscience. You know why? My understanding is, we get country, he ain't got one. He doesn't, we talk about a moral conscience. People have a moral conscience. It may seem like a lot of people don't. But there is something somewhere where that kind of is the breaking. Satan don't have that. Except that where God limits him. So I want you to think about the devil's power and what he's willing to do to mess up your relationship with God. Now, for the purposes of our class, like I always say, I want us to try and not project onto other people the thoughts that we have. I want us to try and think about our own relationship with God, and in doing so, now listen to me carefully. This is an adult class. I think we should be able to handle it. Also, our relationship with Satan. Not just our relationship with God, but our relationship with Satan. And you may be sitting there thinking, John, what are you talking about? I don't have a relationship with Satan. Yes, you do. You do. Because Satan's after you. Now, I have a list here. This is some stuff that I've studied over the years. I did not come up with this stuff. This is from one of my classes years ago that I've hung on to. I'm going to read you a list of things. Now, it may be hard for you to stay with me because there's several things, but I think if you're focused, it won't be hard at all. The title of this is Satan's Thinking Trap. Satan's Thinking Trap. People have to like me for me to be happy. Number 2. You got this? You may have shook your head on that. Number 2. My emotions I can't control. Number 3. It is too hard or too late for me to learn self-discipline. It is too hard or it is too late for me to learn self-discipline. Number 4. My childhood will always affect me. My childhood will always affect me. Or, my childhood will always control me. Number 5, I cannot change what I think. I cannot change what I think, or I cannot change the way I think. I must never show any weakness. Never show any weakness. There's got to be a cure for my problems. Strong people don't ask for help. Everything should be or has to be fair. Everything should be or has to be fair. How often, you can write that one down, but how often in our lives have we dealt with situations where we've said or we felt, this is not fair? I should be able to change, you fill in the blank, their behavior. I should be able to change my spouse's behavior, my children's behavior, my parents' behavior. I should be able to change their behavior. God could never forgive me for my past. Whew. This is just the way I am. I can't change. It's just how I am. I can take that deeper and say, that's just how I am, and God made me that way. You ever heard that? If you've never heard it, it's because you've said it. Okay? Regular attendance means I'm faithful. Regular attendance means that's the same thing as being faithful. Now remember, these are Satan's thinking traps. People make me mad. And when I explode, it's their fault. I can continue just like I am, and God will still be pleased with me. And then the last one on this list, I'm all alone. I'm all alone. You see, we could keep going, of course, with this list. But for the purpose of this class and the few minutes that we're in here, I wanted you to think first about what this list was titled. And it is titled Satan's Thinking Traps. Because Satan does the most damage in between our ears. You think about all the evil that exists in the world around us. Do you know from the individual or individuals that the evil comes from? Do you know where it started? You know where it originated for them? Not in the temptation, not in sin, not in wickedness. I don't mean that far back, but for that individual, where that evil started was in between their ears. Now, a lot of things play a factor into that. The people we listen to, the stuff we watch, the things we feed ourselves, that plays a role in that. But where evil, individuals' evil originates is inside of our head. The thinking traps of Satan. Now, I wanted us to think about these tonight, not from a projection standpoint. Now, I've been working on this class for a while, so the events of today in our society were not behind this class. It just big crazy things happen. Big crazy things happen every day. And we can see Satan out there. Can you see the effects of Satan out there? Okay? Go back to Job. Go back to Job, and if you read that with me, or you read that with me, or you read it on your own, if your brain works like mine, bless your heart, but if your brain works like mine, as you read it, it plays a picture in my brain. You see, the way my brain works, and I don't know if yours does this way, the way my brain works, when I read something, I don't just read it and ingest the word that it says. It creates a picture in my mind. And so I begin in my head to see the actions of the words that I'm reading. So as I read just that short chapter of Job chapter 1, and we know a little bit what happens next, but as we read Job chapter 1, it begins to play in my brain. I see it unfold. And if I look at that inside my brain, I see Satan all over that. Don't you? When you read that, if your brain works like mine, do you picture Satan walking before God? I do, and I don't know why. I don't have a specific idea of the face of Satan. I don't see that. But I see a being kind of in the presence of God. And then I begin to see the effects of it. And I see Job, and it's kind of crazy how the brain works. Do you picture Job? When you see him in your head, what does he look like? A what?
A real old man.
A real old man. Okay?
Very wise.
Old, wise man. Okay, it's crazy how the human brain works. I'm not going to take this to a psychology class too far, but I see a white man. I don't see a Middle Eastern man. I don't see a black man. I see a white man, I guess, because that's what I am. But I picture an old white man who's bald-headed. I don't, you know. But I see it unfold, and I begin to see Satan. Okay, first, my sheep. Then all my cattle. And then my servants. And I even picture like the house that his kids were in. I picture that in my brain, like it plays out in my brain. And I see it, I'm like, Satan, all over that. I go home, you go home, and you turn on the news, you see Satan. You even like watch commercials. Do people watch commercials? Have I told y'all this before? That kids, if y'all don't know, if y'all not around a whole lot of kids, do you know what that a lot of kids don't know the word commercial? Like they don't say commercials. You know what they say? You can tell us with young kids. They say ads. That's crazy to me. But anyway, you can watch commercials and see Satan all over that. Back in the day, you know, when like magazines and stuff were popular, you know what some of you called that? Or your grandmas called it? Smut. There's smut in that magazine. Really, you can see Satan in that. Even TV shows or movies, you can disassociate yourself from it, but as you watch it, you can say, oh, that's evil. That's bad. That's not a good situation. You know what you're saying when you say that, right? You're saying that where evil is present, you're recognizing who? Satan. So how come it is so difficult for us? You can agree or disagree or agree to disagree, but how come it is so difficult for us, or most of us, to see Satan active in our own personal life? We're able to see it in the books, in the magazines, in the movies, on the computer. We're able to see it in our society. We're able to go into public and see it. We're able to look at relationships and situations and point out Satan, sin, Satan, sin. But it's so much more difficult for us to recognize that Satan and the character / lack thereof is very present in our life today. That Satan is all over you. And he begins to convince us of certain sins are okay, or the lies of Satan. John chapter 8, what's he called? Yeah, the father of all lies, that Satan begins to convince us of these certain things to either make us feel inadequate and stay in sin, or justify our sin and stay in it. He convinces us that we're going too far, or that we have too many hurdles to overcome, so we stay in sin. Or Satan, in his crafty, conniving ways, convinces us we're okay where we're at and just stay. Just like one of the things we read, attendance equates faithfulness. Now, as I get older, the crazier this seems to me. But is attendance necessary for a Christian? Now, see, this is a conversation that I would love to have with whoever wants to have it. Is attendance necessary in a faithful Christian walk or journey? Let me tell you why this is a crazy conversation to me. Because for a faithful Christian, it should never be a conversation. That shouldn't, we begin to try and justify not worshiping or not coming together as a body of believers and doing it the least amount as possible. It's Wednesday night, you're here, I understand that. But the older I get, the weirder and crazier that concept is to me. But yes, worship and fellowship, coming together, is a command in the Word of God. But when we begin to think, do I have to? That's a crazy, flawed logic to me. And Satan begins to convince us attendance equals faithfulness. I think it's a trap that a lot of us fall into sometimes. Points to our sermon this coming Sunday morning, but just going through the motions. And since I'm there, I'm faithful. Because I am attending means I'm faithful. And then I leave and live crazy. Yes, sir?
With that same thought, when you get to the age of having to go to a nursing home, then you can't go. Then you have the same mindset then.
I love that you brought that up, because working with Liberty for over 17 years, I've experienced dealing with a lot of different people in a lot of different stages of life. And you get to see our faithful old people get to the point they physically can't go. And then they hit that edge. So like, say I'm going, and this is where I can't physically go anymore. They still do. And they go till about here. And when they literally cannot go anymore, it hurts them so bad. And then I've tried to come up with a way to do this in a lesson, and I'm not sure how to do it yet. But you compare that to those of us who are younger and think that we've got our whole life to get to that point. And so often we try to come up with ways not to be there. And when there's those people who can't get up out of the lift chair anymore, that would give anything that they got just to go one more time.
Are they still worshiping?
Yeah. Right? Yeah, still worshiping when they can't be there. Charlie Hightower.
What he tells me all the time, every time I call him. You just don't understand.
Jonathan, I think, I don't want to get on a soapbox, and I won't, but I think that is where our society, in creating these large congregations, is such a disservice to the first century church. The first century church met in homes. They went from place to place. They took the worship to the people, and not the people having to go to worship. That was the old law. That's what was required in the old law, is people had to go to the place to worship. The New Testament church was, the worship was where you were at. You didn't have to go. But we created this, which is fine, and I think it's great, that we come together and we edify and we worship. But we ostracize those that can't. To the extent that they are at home alone, that's not the way God intended worship to be in the first place. That, I think, is something we need to really introspectively think about it ourselves.
Great point.
Why did they worship in their homes? Because it was illegal to be a Christian. You would be killed by the Romans. Right. Very bad.
Yeah, and they couldn't travel like we could. They couldn't go places. They could hop in their car and go across town. These people had 2 pennies in their pockets to do anything. The best they could do maybe was to walk across town. But that was not the design.
Jesus said that the people in the temple, their house would be desolate. Because God moved out.
That's right.
It's their house now. They killed the Christ. That's their house.
And then we have congregations constructed, built in the New Testament.
Sure.
And these congregations were together. And now this is a blessing that we have the freedom to come. without fear of being executed. We have that freedom. We have this blessing of a building and air conditioning and heat and all those things, a wonderful blessing. Now we have a blessing of even those that can't. We got this thing online that is a blessing and a curse. Because, ooh, y'all bringing my lesson full circle. Because Satan will use everything. Those things that are blessings from God, Satan will manipulate it and take it outside of the blessing and turn it into sin. You see, we have some, and I'm not going to name names because I don't want to point out anybody. We have some that physically can't get here. They can't walk from the parking lot to the building. Until Hardy Mitchell couldn't get up, do you know that he got up and got ready for church every Sunday morning? And couldn't come. But this is a blessing for those that get to that point. But it's a curse because people will use it as an excuse that could be here. You see what I'm saying? And I know that some of you probably, some of you have told me, you go back and rewatch it. And it's a blessing because it's on there and available. I can go listen to Greg's class. And when I've spoken at other places, I can go back and listen to what y'all talked about here. And I can do all it. That's a blessing. Satan will manipulate those things and cause it to be sinful in your life. Any other comments on that? That's a great discussion. It's thought-provoking to me because some of our brains work on, we've got so many things we got to get done and we're going to go through and get them done as much as we can. And we allow that to say, I went to school today, so I was there. I went to work today, so I was present. I went to church today, so I was faithful. And we leave out the whole worshiping in spirit and in truth. You see, worshiping in spirit does not mean that I sat in my pew. Where does worshiping in spirit take place? In your mind, your heart. You've got to be, this is the way I think about it, and I have to remind myself, you have to be consciously worshiping God. Because a lot of us in here grew up in the church, and almost every song that is put up on the PowerPoint, what do you know by heart? You don't need to, we could turn the PowerPoint off and you might mumble through a couple words, but you would get back on it because you know every word of the song that we sang. And so it just goes, and Jonathan says, turn to Acts 2:38. You say, no, I ain't got to. I know what that says. We're going to talk about the resurrection of Jesus today. I know what that says. Walmart. We used to make lists in church. Don't look down now. We used to make Walmart lists in church. Oh, y'all didn't? Okay. Now you don't do that no more. You know what you do? Not you. Now you do your Walmart order in church. You do your Walmart order, you don't do your Walmart list. Oh, we're talking about baptism again. I know what this is. See, we're not consciously worshiping in spirit and in truth. We're just present. Don't allow Satan to convince you that being present equates faithfulness. It leads to a false sense of confidence. Side note, to me, that is one of Satan's greatest tools, period, is a false sense of confidence in our relationship with God. Now, 1 John tells us we are to be confident as Christians. If we are faithful, we are to be confident. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be confident. I'm saying that false sense of confidence is one of Satan's greatest tools. You know one reason I believe that? No? Okay, I'll tell you. Go into our society and see how many people believe that if they died right now, they'd go to heaven. And see if the percentage reflects the Word of God. You come back and you won't, but you come back and report to me whether it was a wide gate or a narrow gate.
It all depends on what the population number is on the, city limit sign.
Uh-huh.
That's how many people are going to have.
You're right, you're right. How accurate those are. False sense of confidence. Don't fall into that trap that Satan plays in your mind, using a false sense of confidence to make you think that your relationship with God is where it's at. So tonight, we're out of time. Tonight, we talked about Job chapter 1. We've got some more to go over, but we talked about Job chapter 1 and character that is revealed there a little bit. Not necessarily in the way that we think about it a lot of times. Not in the way that the character is reflected by Job, but character that is revealed of Satan. Now, I want you to think, because we'll pick this up next week, Lord willing, in the creek don't rise. There is no limit to what Satan will use to try and interfere with your relationship with God. There is no moral compass. But you have a hedge of protection. Thank you for your comments and discussion. You're dismissed.